Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're strapping in for a deep dive into what is, really, the brain of modern military
The
operations.
division artillery.
Exactly, the DIVARTY. And, if you're imagining cannon fodder and guys in dusty trenches,
Not at all.
you're about a century behind. This is a high-tech brigade-level headquarters that manages, well, everything.
The entire spectrum. We're talking kinetic and non-lethal effects for a whole division.
It's like the orchestra conductor for destructive power.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And our mission for you, the listener, is to really pull back the curtain on that complexity. We want you to see how the DIVARTY ensures that everything from a precision missile to a jamming attack is available and delivered when and where they are needed.
And that's not just about raw firepower.
No, not at all. Effective operations here demand expert leadership, deep knowledge, and just a razor-sharp situational understanding of every single piece of the puzzle.
So let's build that foundation. What exactly is this DIVARTY? I know it's a brigade command, but what's its core function?
At its simplest, the DIVARTY plans, prepares, executes, and then assesses all the fires for the division.
Okay.
Think of them as the division's central clearinghouse for damage and disruption. They make sure every single unit is positioned correctly and firing at the right time.
And the person in charge of all this, they have a massive advisory role, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
The DIVARTY commander isn't just commanding artillery troops, they're the fire support coordinator, the FSCOORD.
The FSCOORD.
And in that role, they become the primary advisor to the division commander on the entire fire's warfighting function.
So they're telling the top boss what's possible.
Essentially, yes. They're saying, here's where we can inflict damage, here's how fast, and here are the consequences.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, let's tackle that keyword you used, fires. Because in this context, it's not just about artillery shells, is it?
Far from it.
Yeah.
When we say fires, what we really mean is the collective and coordinated use of Army indirect fires, your classic artillery,
Right.
but also air and missile defense and joint fire
Joint fires, meaning?
from partners like the Air Force or the Navy. And all of that is channeled through a very rigorous targeting process so that Army forces can seize, retain, and really exploit the initiative.
So it's about being proactive, not just reactive.
That's the whole game.
Okay, let's unpack that. If the DIVARTY is managing this fire's warfighting function, what are the fundamental jobs they're doing every single day?
It really breaks down into three core tasks. The first one is they have to deliver fires.
Deliver fires.
And like we just said, that means applying either lethal force, an explosion, or non-lethal effects. Things like jamming or informational disruption.
So delivery isn't just pulling a trigger, it's choosing the right type of effect.
Precisely. And the second task is maybe the most crucial. They have to integrate all forms of Army fires with joint and multinational fires.
Okay, so you're in a coalition operation.
Exactly. You might have U.S. Army cannons, British fighter jets, and naval assets, all trying to hit targets in the same airspace. The DIVARTY is responsible for making sure those systems don't conflict, and ideally, that they work together synergistically.
That sounds like a monumental deconfliction job right there. And the third task?
The third task is to conduct targeting.
Targeting.
This is the formal, multi-step process where targets are identified, vetted, prioritized, and then finally approved for attack. It's a systematic approach.
And that ensures you're hitting what really matters.
It ensures you're hitting the high payoff targets effectively.
And when you look at the sheer range of delivery formats available, surface to surface, air to surface, even electronic attack, it seems like the biggest challenge is choosing the right tool for the job. How do they manage that scalability?
That is the art of fire support. A commander has to apply the precise, necessary mix of force.
And that's based on?
It's based on the mission, what the enemy is trying to do, and critically, what resources you actually have left. You don't use a multi-million-dollar missile to hit a single truck.
Unless that truck is the enemy commander's.
Unless it's a very, very important truck.
That ability to scale, to use just the right amount of force, that must be key to managing perceptions and avoiding political fallout.
It is absolutely vital. The ability to scale fires lets you successfully engage those high payoff targets, the HPTs, while at the same time minimizing collateral damage.
A surgical strike, not a sledgehammer.
Exactly. Especially when you're near civilian infrastructure or your own forces. The team is constantly planning for that precise, appropriate mix of effects.
So how does the DIVARTY make sure its fires support the division's bigger strategy, whether they're on offense, defense, or something else entirely?
The DIVARTY is essential for shaping the battlefield. In an offensive operation, you can think of their long-range fires as preemptive strikes.
Okay.
They engage the enemy's reserves, their command posts, their logistics.
Yeah.
They hit them before those capabilities ever come into close contact with U.S. forces on the front line.
So they're softening up the future battlefield.
Precisely. It lets the frontline troops focus on seizing ground.
And in a defensive role.
In a defensive or a stability role, the fires might be used completely differently. They could be for area denial, creating protective zones around key facilities, or even enforcing border control.
So it's deterrence and protection, not just destruction.
It's about giving the commander options.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Let's move from the strategy to the tactical execution. How do they handle a major pre-planned strike versus that moment-to-moment close support? Let's start with a strike.
A strike is the ultimate example of deliberate, methodical planning. We define it as a focused operation to damage or destroy a critical objective.
And what makes it different is the timeline.
The timeline is everything. This is a pre-planned event. We're talking hours, sometimes days of coordination. It is explicitly not a reflexive fire mission against a target that just popped up.
The word deliberate implies a lot of prep work. What is that by the commander?
Effectiveness and safety. When you have that kind of time and you have timely, accurate intelligence, you can use precision-guided munitions.
Smart bombs, guided shells.
Exactly. And those dramatically increase the certainty of a hit, while reducing the risk of fratricide and collateral damage.
Now, the DIVARTY also plays a huge role as a potential counterfire headquarters. What does that proactive defense look like?
Counterfire is aimed squarely at the enemy's ability to shoot back.
Okay.
The focus is engaging the enemy's own long-range artillery and their command and control. The counterfire headquarters manages the sensors, the radars listening for incoming rounds, and plans the immediate fires to destroy those enemy positions.
So to do that, they have to be positioned almost on the front line.
They have to be. A key consideration, especially against an enemy with powerful anti-access capabilities, is positioning your counterfire systems forward.
You have to be close enough to hit them before they can pack up and move.
Before they can move, exactly.
This all seems to feed into the concept of the deep fight. Can you define that for us?
Certainly. Conceptually, the deep fight is about hitting the enemy's reserves, their bench warmers, before they can even get into the game.
And the deep area is just the part of the battlefield that no one's in yet.
The part that's not assigned to a frontline unit, yes. And the DIVARTY's job is to shape that area before our forces get there. When they have long-range rocket units, like MLRS or HIMARS, they execute fires against enemy artillery, their main headquarters, and their follow-on echelons.
What are those follow-on echelons in practice? What are we talking about?
We're talking about the high-value forces you absolutely do not want to see in a direct fight. Enemy air defense systems, fresh tank battalions, attack helicopter units staged far from the front.
So you take them off the board early.
You systematically dismantle the enemy's combat power before you ever make contact.
And then on the complete opposite end of that spectrum, you have close support fires for the frontline brigade combat teams.
That's the tactical reality. Those big rockets are great for hitting large formations, but when you're fighting close to friendly troops, or worse, in urban areas with civilians,
Accuracy is everything.
accuracy becomes paramount. This is where you see heavy reliance on precision-guided munitions, like the Excalibur artillery round or guided MLRS rockets, the GMLRS. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you see complexity just explodes. The DIVARTY commander, as the FSCOORD, has to integrate so much more than just Army artillery.
Right. They're talking to the Air Force, the Navy.
Potentially international partners, yeah.
Okay, let's start with the biggest one, the air component. How does the DIVARTY make sure Army cannons and Air Force jets aren't, hitting each other?
The primary mechanism for that is something called the Joint Air-Ground Integration Center, or JGIC.
JGIC.
This center is a fusion point. It's physically formed by the Air Force's Air Support Operations Center, the ASOC, and representatives from the Division Fire Cell. Because the nerve center for controlling all joint air operations that support the ground forces.
And make sure everyone knows where everyone else is.
Exactly.
And then you have the people on the ground actually calling in the strikes.
That's the critical role of the Joint Terminal Attack Controller, or JTAC. These are highly qualified specialists embedded with tactical units on the front line.
They're the ones talking to the pilots.
They are the final authority who says clear to fire, making sure that bomb lands exactly where it's supposed to.
Our sources also mention coordination with naval and marine assets. How does that work?
It's largely advisory and doctrinal. A division might get naval gunfire liaison officers, or NGLOs, who are there to advise the commander on how best to use naval gunfire.
And with the Marines?
With the USMC, their doctrine is very similar to the Army's. They use 155mm artillery and HIMARS, which really simplifies things. You use liaison elements to smooth out coordination.
But the real shift, the thing that defines modern warfare, seems to be this integration of non-lethal capabilities. This is where artillery becomes effects management.
It is the defining feature of the future of fires. It really is. Capabilities like electronic warfare, EW, or military information support operations, MISO, they have to be planned right alongside lethal fires.
They disrupt the enemy's mind and their machine, not just their location.
That's the goal.
Our sources even explicitly say that electronic attack is considered a form of fires.
It absolutely is. And it's destructive in its own way. Electronic attack uses concentrated electromagnetic energy to degrade, neutralize, or even physically destroy an enemy's combat capability.
So you're basically using static to break their command and control networks.
That's a good way to think about it. You're preventing them from using the electromagnetic spectrum.
And how do MISO and IO information operations fit into that targeting cycle?
They get brought in right at the beginning. MISO planners participate in targeting to nominate targets, but they're nominating target audiences to influence.
So not a physical thing, but a group of people.
A group of people. They advise the commander on the psychological effects of all actions, lethal and non-lethal. They help figure out how bombing a bridge, for example, will affect a population's morale.
So the goal isn't just destruction, it's influencing behavior.
Precisely. Information operations effects are usually indirect. They build on the physical or electronic disruption we've caused. And that's why IO-related goals are formally nominated to the targeting board for approval, just like an enemy tank battalion would be.
Okay, so we've talked about the planning and the external integration. Let's look inside the DIVARTY command post itself. How is all this actually managed day to day?
The whole system really hinges on the division's targeting methodology. They use a framework called D3A.
D3A.
Decide, detect, deliver, and assess. And the FSCOORD is the first domino. They advise the commander on targeting guidance, what capabilities are most important to destroy right now. That guidance drives the entire process.
And who are the key players inside the headquarters making that data actionable?
You've got several critical sections. First is the targeting section. They work with the S2, the intelligence officer. They're the ones crunching the data, developing the high payoff target list, the HPTL.
Which tells everyone what needs to be destroyed.
Correct. And they also create the attack guidance matrix, the AGM, which specifies how those targets should be hit.
So if the targeting section decides what to hit, who provides the real-time location data to make that list relevant?
That would be the Target Acquisition Platoon, the TA Platoon. They are the eyes and ears of the DIVARTY.
Okay.
They operate the high-tech, weapons-locating radars that instantly pinpoint where enemy fire is coming from.
Yeah.
They also provide the survey capabilities to make sure our own fires are accurate.
And they do more than that.
They do. This platoon is absolutely vital because they also include Sentinel radar teams for low-altitude air surveillance and early warning for the entire division.
But the overall synchronization, making sure all those moving parts actually mesh together, that seems like a massive job for the operations staff.
It is. And that's the role of the operations officer, the S3. They are the chief organizer. They supervise the military decision-making process, figure out the DIVARTY's combat potential, and maybe most practically, they handle the positioning guidance. They make sure every single artillery unit and radar is exactly where it needs to be.
And finally, who is the person in charge of making the actual fire mission happen? The ultimate technical expert who turns guidance into action.
That would be the fire control officer. They supervise the tactical and technical fire direction. This is the person who decides the final details of where and how the DIVARTY will fire. They're using highly automated systems, like AVAC-Ds.
The Advanced Field Artillery Tactical Data System.
Right. They use that to implement the commander's guidance and execute pre-planned fires in milliseconds. So let's bring this all home for you. The DIVARTY is, fundamentally, the division's quarterback for both destructive and disruptive effects. It's a specialized brigade headquarters that coordinates everything from long-range precision missiles to information campaigns and devastating electronic attacks.
And you, the listener, have just mastered how a single brigade-level command can orchestrate these incredibly complex effects across land, air, and even the cyber domain, all at the same time. It's a stunning level of integration.
It is.
But this total integration, especially using the electromagnetic spectrum for jamming and communication, comes with a profound challenge that the DIVARTY has to constantly manage. Our sources specifically noted that the DIVARTY has to provide friendly emitter locations for the airspace control order. And
Hmm.
why? To prevent the fratricide of our own electronic warfare or air defense radars.
Right.
And this raises a really important question. When you integrate so many complex, invisible, non-lethal systems like jamming or cyber effects, how does a commander truly ensure they aren't accidentally turning off and interfering with their own most vital sensors, their own communications, their own air defense systems? This perpetual balance of using, integrating, and deconflicting these complex, often unseen effects, that is the final ongoing challenge of modern fire support.